The union between the worlds of Retharis and Earth was not born from love, but from necessity. Retharis had reached a point where its borders trembled under endless threats from rival realms, while Earth sought allies who could help stabilize fragile roots across the stars. The treaty required more than signatures. It demanded a symbolic bond, a marriage that would anchor peace through shared destiny. The Queen of Retharis agreed with steady composure, knowing her people viewed her as the heart of their world. Her name was Lyra, and she carried herself with the grace and power of someone raised from childhood to command. The human chosen by Earth was named Ethan. He was calm, reserved, and carried himself not as a diplomat or soldier, but as a man who knew how to watch quietly. When Lyra first met him, she wondered if Earth had made an error. He wore no grand uniform. He did not speak with the polished confidence of trained emissaries. He stood still, as if every sound in the palace was worth observing. She had expected someone loud, someone desperate to impress. Instead, she found stillness wrapped in skin and breath. Their marriage ceremony was simple. Retharian traditions required a joining of palms so their energies could mingle and seal the vow. The moment Lyra touched his hand, she felt a surge. Not painful, but thick like the presence of dormant storms. She held her expression steady. Later, she convinced herself it had been nerves. Ethan barely reacted, offering her a warm nod as if acknowledging something he had expected all along. For the first weeks, they lived not as lovers, but as partners defined by duty. Lyra managed her council, addressed border issues, and oversaw repairs in regions harmed by long years of conflict. Ethan walked the palace grounds, studied Retharian structures, and listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words held careful weight. He asked about the crystal fields. He asked about the silent towers that once hosted ancient Retharian guardians. He asked about the shifting forests that moved with the seasons. She found herself answering, even when she had no need to. His interactions with the people surprised her. Children approached him with curiosity, tugging at his sleeve to ask questions about Earth. He would kneel to speak to them at eye level, with a gentle tone that softened even the stern guards nearby. The elders watched him with wariness, but their distrust faded when he treated everyone with calm respect. Lyra noticed something subtle. Ethan understood people. He did not try to win them. He simply saw them. Everything changed 6 weeks into the Union. An alliance of rival realms known as the Iron Crest launched a lightning assault along the outer border. They moved with arrogance, believing Retharis weakened and Earth too distant to provide immediate support. Reports flooded the palace. Outposts had fallen. Villages were burning. Retharis soldiers struggled against new siege machines powered by dark engines. The council demanded immediate evacuation of nearby regions. Lyra stood at the balcony, overlooking the plains where distant smoke rose like thin fingers. Her heart tightened as memories of past wars flickered. She remembered losing friends when she was young, remembered nights when fear echoed across the land. She would not let her people suffer again. Ethan approached quietly and stood beside her. She expected words of sympathy. Instead, he asked one simple question. How close are they? Lyra turned to face him and answered that the invading forces had already reached the North Ridge. If they passed that line, the capital would be next. Ethan absorbed the information with that same calm expression he always wore. I want to go there, he said. Lyra stiffened. You are not trained in our tactics. You cannot put yourself at risk. Earth sent you as a symbol, not as a shield. Ethan shook his head. I was not sent here only to stand in halls. I need to see the battlefield. Why? Lyra asked. Because I can stop them. It was spoken plainly, without boasting or strain. Lyra studied him, trying to decipher whether the words were misunderstanding, desperation, or simple bravado. Yet nothing about Ethan aligned with empty claims. There was something in his voice that pressed against her doubt. She denied him at first. Her duty as queen demanded his safety. But when the border reports grew worse, and the Iron Crest forces cut through a second defensive line, she made a decision fueled by instinct rather than protocol. She would accompany him to the North Ridge with a guard escort so he could witness the situation firsthand. Maybe then he would accept the danger and return to safety. The transport vessel glided across the sky with smooth hums. Lyra wore her combat mantle, deep silver with dark trimming. Ethan wore simple travel gear, unarmored and unarmed except for a small earth blade strapped to his wrist. Several guards exchanged uneasy glances. They did not hide their concern. Lyra herself felt tension like a cord, drawn too tight. When the vessel lowered onto the North Ridge platform, the air trembled with distant blasts. The sky flickered with orange trails. Retharian soldiers rushed across trenches. Medics tended to the wounded. The scent of burnt metal thickened every breath. A commander approached and bowed to Lyra before reporting the situation. Enemy walkers powered by dark engines were advancing with shields strong enough to deflect Retharian plasma bolts. Their infantry used hooks of charged alloy capable of slicing through armor. Morale was slipping. Ethan listened. Then he walked to the edge of the ridge where one could see the enemy formations gathering like storm tides. Lyra followed him, staying close. "This is what we face," she said. "Do you now understand why you must return to the capital?" Ethan stepped forward until he stood alone at the ledge. Lyra reached out, but he raised a hand gently. Not to stop her, but to ask for trust. Then he inhaled deeply. The air shifted. Before Lyra could process what she was witnessing, Ethan crouched slightly and launched forward from the ridge with a force that cracked the stone beneath his feet. Soldiers gasped. The commander stumbled back in shock. Lyra stood frozen as the human she had married soared across the battlefield like a bolt of living power. He hit the ground among the rival infantry with a thundering impact. Dust erupted around him. For a moment, everything fell silent, and movement erupted with terrifying clarity. Ethan charged through, armored troops with speed too fast for the eye to follow. He struck with open palms and controlled motions that felt like precision art rather than violence. Enemy soldiers flew across the field as if struck by invisible waves. Their weapons shattered upon contact with his skin. Walkers fired heavy rounds, but he moved through them like wind through branches. Lyra watched from the ridge, unable to breathe. Every story she had heard about enhanced humans, about hidden Earth projects, had been dismissed as rumor. But Ethan moved with strength beyond any soldier she had ever known. His body seemed to pulse with restrained storms. His steps cracked the earth. His strikes bent metal. One walker, towering and shielded by dark energy, fired a blast meant to disintegrate armor. Ethan raised his arms and absorbed the hit. The energy rippled around him, bending like light through water. Then he leapt upward, landed on the walker, and ripped the core engine from its chest. The machine collapsed with a howl of failing circuits. The Iron Crest forces faltered. Fear rippled through their ranks. But Ethan did not stop. He moved forward alone, breaking lines by sheer presence. The shield generators failed under his pressure. The dark engines sputtered. Within minutes, the battlefield transformed into something no strategist could explain. One human had turned an inevitable defeat into a rout. The Iron Crest army retreated in panic, leaving behind wreckage and confusion. Lyra remained frozen until Ethan finally walked back toward the ridge. His steps were steady, his breathing calm. His clothes were torn, but his body carried no wounds. When he reached her, he lowered his gaze respectfully. "I apologize for acting without permission," he said, "but I needed to end this quickly." Lyra stared at him, Words lost. The guards lowered their weapons and stared with awe usually reserved for ancient guardians. How? She finally whispered. Ethan looked out over the broken war machines and quiet field. Earth has secrets, he said. Not all of them shared. I am one of them. Lyra tried to read his expression, but found only sincerity. Why send you into a marriage alliance instead of a military post? Because Earth wanted peace, he answered. Power often brings fear. Fear brings conflict. They believed that if anyone learned what I was capable of, it could destabilize everything. A marriage meant diplomacy. It meant partnership, not intimidation. But when your people were at risk, I could not remain silent. The queen felt something shift in her chest. Not fear, not distrust. Something closer to understanding. She had carried the weight of her people for years, believing herself alone in the storms of leadership. Yet here stood a man who had carried storms inside him all this time without boasting or seeking praise. Will there be more attacks? Ethan asked. Yes, Lyra replied honestly. The Iron Crest will regroup. Others may join them. Then I will stand with you, he said. Not as a weapon, but as your partner. She held his gaze, seeing not just strength but choice. The choice to protect without demanding reward. The choice to fight only when necessary. The choice to stand beside her rather than above her. The council was stunned when the reports arrived. Most struggled to believe the descriptions of Ethan's feats. Some whispered theories about Earth never revealed. Others questioned whether such power belonged within the palace. Lyra Sillen,